Welcome to On the Point podcast with Brother Fluff. I am Brother Fluff, a proud Texas Freemason, and tonight we are honored to be receiving our special guest, the Most Worshipful Grand Master of Texas Masons, Most Worshipful Bradley Billings. Brother Brad, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I know that you're extremely busy guy. You got a lot of things going on, and for you to jump in 9 months into your term as Grand Master and say, hey, let's do an interview with Fluff, I am just eternally grateful. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. How has your year been going so far?
It's been excellent. Everything I expected, a little bit more. And it's been nonstop for all these months and a little bit more to go. And it's not going to slow down. So I'm having a great time. I tell everybody, I hope you're having a great time with me. But, at the end of the day, I'm doing stuff that I enjoy in Masonry, and I hope others are as well.
So for those of you who don't know, Brother Billings just got back from pretty much a historic trip over in the UK. He went to England, Scotland. Did you get to Ireland, or where'd you get over there?
No, couldn't work it in. We tried, but we just got to London and Edinburgh.
Yeah. And he happened to be there during this historic time of obviously the Queen passing away and King Charles ascending to the throne, and then a new prime minister as well. Like pretty much anywhere Brad goes, he just makes history. That's what we're just sticking with. He's making history where he goes, and he's very literally the definition of a traveling man. But you aren't done yet, and I think it's important to say you have a special event coming up on October the 1st. It is you're doing your Grand Masters conference in Gonzales. Is that correct? What's happening there?
Well, it's not really a conference. It's laid out like a conference weekend, but it's all centered around come and take it. I tell everybody it's like the Alamo. If you're a Texan, it's a pilgrimage you have to make it during your lifetime. If you're a Texas Freemason, it's a pilgrimage we make every year, and I'm so proud to be head of a body that takes its history so seriously. This is the Come and Take It event. It's one of our annual Masonic historical observances. And it is the first shot of the Texas Revolution that happened in Gonzales. People call it the Lexington of Texas, but it's quite literally where our revolution began. It is what started what we now know today as Texas in the sense of a republic and then a state. And it's an awesome experience. Now, you should go every year, my personal opinion. But in particular, this year, because there are some things that are going on that you're going to want to take part of. Like I said, every Mason should go. Every Texan should go. This is the year, though, that you should mark it off your bucket list for this important reason. Gonzales Lodge, which hosts this event every year, Gonzales Lodge number 30, is having their 175th anniversary this year.
Wow.
So, again, this is historic. It doesn't happen very often. We did the same thing at the Alamo when we were there earlier. We celebrated the Alamo, and then we had Alamo Lodge's 175th. These events don't come along that often. Will we be alive for the 200th anniversary? I certainly hope so, you and I especially. But you never know. So this is a great event to come out to. Friday night, we're going to stop in Lockhart, and we're putting together a Texas-sized charcuterie. That's all I'm going to say. But believe me, it's going to be something you're going to want to be there, get your picture with it. It's going to be epic. Saturday, we have the traditional Come and Take It parade. Then we're going to all retire to another place that every Texas person should make a pilgrimage to in their lifetime, Shiner Brewery. And we're going to have, exactly. And we're going to have a fez-off between the Shriners and the Grotto and see who can get more fezzes to this event. And it's going to be just a great fez-off, great event, a little bit of fun, a little bit of levity. It's a great family event, though. A lot of people think because it's a brewery, it's 21 and up. Simply not the case. They have a great field out in front of it. There's cornhole boards. There's usually German music playing, German food, tents. It's a great place to just come and hang out and enjoy some fellowship. And then we go back to Gonzales that night for the 175th celebration. And then the next morning on Sunday, we wake up. We actually do the Come and Take It, because that was the 2nd. October 2nd was when the cannon was fired. We will do a celebration with the Daughters of the Republic that morning at the monument, and then everybody can get on the road home.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, if you haven't experienced one of these events this year, you got to get out there, because every event has been different. Every event has focused on just different things that mean different things, that bring up different feelings to different Masons, and for guys like me who are really big into history, like I love the bringing the history to these events. But then there's guys who just want to have fun, and those guys get to experience the fun and hang out with the history nerds, and we all have fun. Now, I do have an important question to ask you. Since you are a Red Raider, right? Is it only appropriate that you are going to wear both a red and black fez to this event, or how are you gonna pick?
I will probably not wear a fez because I don't want to show partiality on either side. I will tell you though, I have both of my fezzes, and we have a giant scale built. Right. And I will be monitoring the scale, and I will tilt who's winning and who's losing as we go throughout the day, just to add a little bit of fun. We'll take photos of that during the day. But there will be a winner at the end of this thing. There will be bragging rights on the line. So if you're a member of the grotto or the shrine, you're worried about your bragging rights, you better show up on October 1st. Just
be like us. Why not both?
Absolutely. And I am both, and I'm a proud member of both. And but people ask me all the time, can I wear both fezzes? I said, no, you got to pick one for that day. So maybe you're an officer in one and not in the other. Just pick whichever one you want to for that day, and we're gonna have some fun with it. So. Well,
as a member of the public relations team for the Southwest Grotto Association, boys, I'm just saying, you better black fez up. That's all I gotta say. I'm not pulling sides.
It's really interesting. They're so totally different. The Shrine is a big center. They're usually in the bigger cities, and then the grotto's kind of all sprinkled throughout. They're typically smaller, more of like a lodge feel. So it'll be interesting to see who turns up. But bragging rights will be online, and the Grand Lodge Facebook page will definitely host either a red or black fez. All up to you guys to decide which one it is.
Hey, well, that's awesome. That is awesome. So, I mean, you've really been going at it all year. Like you said, you've gone to San Antonio. You've done many events in Texas. You had the Grapevine event, which I've had so many people comment about the Native American degree team that you had come down. You've been to Holland Lodge #1, like right off the get-go. You weren't even Grandmaster for 6 days before you made it down to Holland. It was pretty quick. Yeah, it was
just a week.
Yeah. So you've made it all the way across the state. You've gone down into Mexico, but in the same time, I know you've gone from coast to coast. You've been to the East Coast. You've been to the West Coast. You've been up to Minnesota and several places in between. Do you plan on slowing down? I mean, you only got like 3 months left. Are you going to stop, or are you going to just keep going?
The funny thing is, my schedule doesn't allow me to slow down. Now, the day after Grand Lodge, I'm going to slow down. But until then, I just have time. And when we were putting together this year, my team and I, one thing that was important to us was to have events that were worth going to. Not just, we've had this event for the last 30 years. With all due respect, if it's not something that we were motivated and inspired to travel to, I didn't want it on the calendar. There's just not enough time.
Right.
And so, when I was training the district deputies, there used to be this rule that if you're within 100 miles of the Grand Master, you're expected to be there as a district deputy, or send regrets if you can't be there. And I told my guys, I don't care about that. I said, come to the stuff that you were inspired to be at. And I've had more district deputies show up. I mean, we've got guys that are from, 2-3 hours away coming to an event because it's something that inspired them. And I would much rather have those type of events because it's what keeps me going. I look at my calendar and I'm excited for what's up next.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I've stayed motivated, stayed traveling this time. And it's getting closer to the end, but I don't have the luxury or the ability to slow down just because that schedule is so jam-packed.
Yeah.
It has been a great time. And like I said, I tell everybody else, I planned this year out so that I would have a great time. That was the goal, to make it fun and inspiring. And I hope everybody else comes along. And so far they have, and I hope you guys will continue this journey with me for the next 3-4 months.
Man, I was inspired when I went down to Grand Lodge. I wasn't even really planning on going to Grand Lodge this year, but as you know, one of the past masters of my lodges, Heath Sutliff, he did a little bet with me. He said, "Hey, guess what? You're going to Grand Lodge." And I said, "I'm not going to Grand Lodge. My wife won't let me." And so he's like, make it a TikTok challenge. And we got so many followers, so many likes. And so it was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to Grand Lodge because TikTok wants me to. But after experiencing Grand Lodge and meeting the brothers that I met at Grand Lodge, I wanted to hang out with these guys more. So I had to make some plans and get some events going. So, right after Grand Lodge, I headed to San Antonio, and then I get called for other events. So I've been back down to Waco a couple times. I've been to Dallas a couple times. I've been everywhere, places that I normally wouldn't go. It's really, really cool. But a lot of the guys in my lodge, especially the newer Master Masons, they'll be like, is it really important for Master Masons who can't vote? They're not a past master and they're not holding a proxy vote. Is it important for them to go experience Grand Lodge? And I say yes, but I want to hear it straight from your mouth. Do you think it's important for all these guys to show up? And if so, why?
I'll tell you this. This will be my 15th consecutive Grand Lodge this year.
Yeah.
And I was made an entered apprentice in October, and I was so bummed because my entire lodge went to Grand Lodge that year, but I was just an entered apprentice, so I was encouraged not to go because what are you going to do? Sit in the hallway the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But the very next year, and I think it was because I had to sit out and everybody went. The next year I was going. You couldn't stop me. So I was a Master Mason. I went, and I've been every year for 14 consecutive years. This will be 15, Lord willing. And the best way to describe it is a family reunion.
Mm-hmm.
If you go every year, you're going to meet people, and then they meet people, and they introduce you, and you introduce them to the people that you've met, and your circle grows and grows and grows. If you go every year, it ends up becoming this great meeting of friends and brothers that just really, there's nothing else that we do all year long that can touch it. We have 3,000 or 4,000 Masons coming to a city. You might not see these guys again for another year until Grand Lodge again.
Yeah.
If you're cheating yourself by not going to that, if you're robbing yourself of that opportunity, I can't understand why. And so a lot of the stuff that we're doing this year, since COVID started with Paul Underwood, we've always had a virtual component ever since. But myself and several of the trustees are very adamant that we have voting on site at Grand Lodge, because that's one of the greatest things that we have going for us right now, is bringing all these guys from all over Texas together for this one meeting. And so, if you can't make it down there, of course, you can still experience Grand Lodge through a virtual setting. But if you want to vote, but really, more importantly, if you want the experience, and that's the only way you can describe it, is experience of it all, you got to come to Waco.
Yeah.
And it's a small price to pay for the dividends, as you well know now.
Yeah.
The dividends that you receive, not just then, but all year long.
Well, what's really cool for me is, when it got into some of the stuff that I just couldn't participate in, and it's kind of like, well, why am I even here in this point? I had a whole museum to go get lost in, and I had a ton of people outside to go talk to. I mean, you're constantly connecting with brothers, and brothers are just guys who are your best friends you hadn't met yet. So you're walking through a museum, you run into a guy who you've never met before, and by the end of it, you're practically like hugging each other and being like, yeah, I'll see you in 6 months, because you just agreed to sign up for something that you have no idea what you signed up for. But it's a great experience. But saying that, I'm a big history nerd. I mean, it is what I am. Is there a place in Grand Lodge, through the museum, library, wherever, that you just like to kind of go and hide out and get lost? I mean, I don't want you to have to tell your secret and everybody's going to find you there, but is there a particular place that you could just go and sit for hours?
Well, luckily now I have an office to go get lost in for another no, but really, the memorial room, if you've never been in it, has the old stained glass from the old lodge, and it's just a place of reverence, a place to be quiet, to be still. I normally have to go in there before Grand Lodge starts, so Thursday morning, or a lot of times I'll go on Wednesday when the committee meetings are happening, pop into a couple of those, and then just stop by that room and be still for a moment.
Yeah.
It's something that it's a great place for reflection. I love all the museums. I love the library, and I could get lost in there as well. But that place really, you kind of feel it. It's palpable. when you're in that room. So I like to go there at least once or twice during Grand Lodge if I can, to get centered and to kind of have that proper reverence for what we're about to do. And there's one other spot that I'll mention if you've never seen it. If you go out front by the columns, pillars, if you will, and at night, and you look up and see the stained glass of the five brethren under the oak tree, it's awe-inspiring. And so if you've never done that, I encourage you at Grand Lodge at night to go out in front and look at the pillars and that stained glass, and it'll give you some inspiration, I promise you.
I got a beef on that one. Now, granted, I was driving back to the hotel, or I wasn't driving, I was riding back to the hotel from Crickets, and we drove by that stained glass because they're like, Fluff, you got to experience it. You got to see it. It was always turned off. What is the time that light is on? Because I want to see it this year.
So, it all depends on building and when those guys turn it on. But I'm going to request this year during Grand Lodge at night that it be turned on.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not something you want on all night, every night.
Right.
It could draw on vandals or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think during that time, we could probably have the proper guards there to make sure that nothing happens to it. It really is gorgeous. It's really beautiful. You don't see stained glass like that on many Masonic buildings, on the outside of many Masonic buildings. You see it more in cathedrals and stuff like that. It truly is a work of art.
And it's huge, guys. Like, I hadn't seen it lit up, but it's huge. It is absolutely breathtaking to stand in between those pillars, to look down the steps, turn around, see these gigantic doors with this amazing stained glass window. You're right. It's breathtaking. It's awe-inspiring. It's really, really neat. So one thing that young and old Masons have told me across the state is that your year has been different. Whether good or bad, it's been different. Should we expect the same old Grand Lodge coming up in January, or is it going to be something a little different?
Oh, you know me, I always got something up my sleeves. But,
right.
I'll tell you this, it's everything that we've done this year. We've tried to stay true to who we are as Freemasons. We're not trying to go off and be something different. Same thing for Grand Lodge. You're going to get the true Grand Lodge experience if you come down. Yeah. But that being said, everything that we've done, we've looked at it very purposefully. Why do we do this? Is there a reason for that? Can we tweak this? Can we make that event better? And absolutely, at this year at Grand Lodge, I'm not going to give away any secrets because I want you to come down and experience it.
I mean, you'll tell me later, right?
What's that?
You'll tell me later, right? I won't tell anybody. We're good.
Possibly, yeah. Maybe not. You have this whole TikTok thing, and you've got a podcast now, so you might blast it out there. No, but like everything that we've done this year, we've tried to put a fresh spin on it. The Alamo event, there was nothing new there, but we put a new spin on it, and it really did change the outlook and the way that it happened. We're doing the same thing in Gonzales that's coming up. We're putting a fresh spin on it. A new way to look at it, and Grand Lodge will absolutely fall in that same vein. Yeah. So if you've never been, or if you've been 20 times, come this year, because I promise you're going to see something that you've never seen before.
Absolutely. Earlier this year, just to kind of paraphrase you a little bit through your message to the lodges, you said that we should go out and kind of make our own masonry. Well, we've seen you do this traveling. We've seen you promote guys just getting out of their regions a little bit and getting somewhere. Would you say that this traveling and these experiences, that this is Brad Billings' version of masonry given to Texas? Is that kind of what you feel?
So, just a little change in verbiage there, but you're very right on point. But not to make your own version of masonry, because I think that could get out of hand with some people interpreting that, but
right.
to experience masonry the way you want to experience it. Mm-hmm. And what I really mean by that is, don't see somebody being a past master and assume that is the end all be all of masonry. Mm-hmm. Don't see Grand Master and think, well, if I'm not that, I'm not successful. That's not the case at all. I think masonry would be so much better off if people would find stuff that they love to do and just do that.
Yeah.
right? And as you're doing it, you're naturally going to find other stuff within the fraternity that you love, and do that until you get to a point where your wife tells you, okay, hey, maybe you're gone a little too much, and then you stop looking for new stuff. But do what you enjoy, do what you love, and be happy in doing it. I'm not saying don't go out there and become a past master, because there is something to having a vote and a voice in Grand Lodge, but don't put so much emphasis on that is what you're supposed to do. That's what's going to make you happy in Freemasonry. So for me, traveling is absolutely one of those things. I had the good fortune when I was in college. My parents were very understanding. They let me travel abroad, and I learned very quickly that the world is a big place, but it's also very small. And in this most recent trip, traveling as a Mason, which is just a whole nother level of awesomeness.
Yeah.
But when you travel as a Mason, the world is both bigger and smaller at the same time, and it is an incredible experience.
Yeah.
If you are not traveling as a Mason, you're really robbing yourself, like I said. Now, you might be an introvert. Masonry is going to work on that, and I promise. But you may not want to go outside your four walls initially, but there's going to come a point where some event's going to happen, and you're going to want to go to it. I can't encourage you enough to do that. The people you meet, the experiences you have, will enrich your Masonic career tenfold. And it has for me. I want to tell other people, just go do it. What is it going to hurt?
Yeah.
What is it going to hurt? I promise you, you're not going to have a bad time.
Yeah.
Go enjoy Masonry.
Exactly. Earlier this year, I've asked you this question a couple times on lives, in private, and everything like that. I said, Most Worshipful, what's your favorite experience as Grand Master so far? And you keep telling me that it was the Grand Masters Conference. I got to ask, with everything that's happened this year and this crazy historic trip in the UK, is that moment still your favorite moment in Masonry, or as a Grand Master, or has it changed a little bit?
It's impossible, It's one of those things where you couldn't pick. It's like if you had 3 kids and you asked which one's your favorite. There is no right answer, right? I mean, they're all amazing. Every experience that I've had has been phenomenal. Being installed at Grand Lodge, just the being installed part of it was such a profound experience for me.
Yeah.
All the way to the 1,000 Mason March on the Alamo, all the way through a Grapevine, having my home conference, going back to my hometown, Lubbock, in that area. Yeah. Everything that we've done has just been outstanding. And then just most recently, this UK trip, going to the Grand Lodge of England, going to the Grand Lodge of Scotland, being there at such a historic time. I really don't know how you could quantify in any level, any possible way, convey which one of those was better than the other.
Yeah.
But they've been outstanding. And I'm looking at the calendar, and we still have 4 or 5 or 6 of these epic events coming up.
Yeah.
And so maybe in about 10 years after I've unpacked all this awesomeness, I'll have time to kind of think about which one was my favorite. But at the moment, it's still all so fresh, so new.
As long as you come back and tell me first. That's all I ask. Just make sure it's with me.
When I figure it out, you'll be the first to know.
I do have to say, I'd feel really terrible if I didn't say this. I would like to congratulate you and your wonderful, lovely wife on 10-year anniversary. I know that you scored some brownie points by mixing a Masonic trip with an anniversary and a dinner in, where was it? Edinburgh, Scotland? Where was that?
Edinburgh.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm not creeping on you or anything.
No, even that had some Masonic ties. The funny thing, I have a good friend, Moses Gomez, out of New Jersey, and he had been to Scotland to lecture several times. He knows all the guys over there. And so we were talking before I went, and I said, 10-year anniversary is coming up. Really need to do something nice. What do you got? And so he was calling everybody over there and figuring out where to go. And so we ended up at this absolutely gorgeous place. It was a 7-course meal. Hopefully I got some brownie points, as you said. But really, it's all set up because of Masonry. We were on this trip, and I was like, honey, do you want to celebrate when we get back, or do you want to celebrate while we're in Edinburgh?
Right.
So the obvious in Scotland, right?
Yeah.
And it was a blast. So,
Yeah.
Kudos to Masonry for hooking me up with some grounding points.
Well, that kind of leads into a pretty interesting topic here. You are a younger grandmaster in the line of grandmasters across the United States and the world. Really, you're one of the younger ones. You have a young son, and you have been married for 10 years. How do you how does your family relate, and how do they fit in all of this masonry all the time this year? Have they accepted it pretty well, or has it been something that you've had to work around? Because I've been married to my wife for 10 years, and she tells me exactly what you said. Honey, you got to slow down a little bit. How does that work as Grandmaster?
Well, interestingly enough, everything in life is balance, right? And particularly in masonry, we learned that early on, that it's a balance. But before I made myself available for this office, I sat down with my wife and my mentor, Leonard Harvey, and we talked through it. What is it going to take? How much time? How much effort? This was well before I made myself available. This was when I was starting to think about it, and got her buy-in, at the moment. And then talked to my parents, my sister, the whole family. Said, I'm going to need a lot of help if I am successful in this over the 4 years. And of course, in that last year, I'm going to need extra help. So everything was good. Everybody agreed to it. And I had started making myself available 2 years before I was going to run, because I'm a younger guy. I wanted to get around the state and tell people why I was making myself available.
Yeah.
6 months before the votes were cast, we find out we're pregnant. And so at the time I'm thinking, oh no, I've spent a year and a half on the road, 40, 50,000 miles. And now I don't know how this is going to work. But after much thought and much prayer, I went through that same process again. I went to my wife, made sure I had her blessing, went to my parents and my family, and got a blessing again. And it really turned out to be, through divine providence, exactly what was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Because what you said in the beginning, that working man, family man, those things are important to the guys who are joining Masonry today. They don't have the free time that, the older guys have that are retired. And so having my son literally 3 months after I was installed, made me look at this process through a whole different light that I wouldn't have, if it was just me and my wife.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our events this year, as you well know, had childcare. Or we had another event for the ladies and the kids to go enjoy while we were doing masonry.
Yeah.
That probably wouldn't have happened. It was just me and my wife,
Yeah.
So it really ended up being a great thing. It was something that I had to think through, but I think it's something that we should all think through in the future, because if we want more young guys to join and participate, we have to think of the family man. We have to think of the working man.
Yeah.
And that's the guys that are joining now fit that demographic. And so for us, as leaders in the fraternity, we have to look at how do we accommodate their schedule.
Yeah. And I got to say, brothers, if you can get your wife to hang out with other Masons' wives and your kids to hang out with other Masons' kids, you're going to have a good time. Even if it's 100% family event, no esoteric light being shared or anything, you're going to have a good time, because when you join the Masonic Brotherhood, you are joining a family. And it's really cool to see all these little relationships start to form, with my wife hanging out with the others, and my boys, they want to go to lodge because they know they're going to get to see their friends at lodge. It's neat. Your son, he's 3 or 4, somewhere around there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Do you think he'll knock on the door one day?
Before we get to that, just real quick, tagging on what you said, my son's 3. One of his best friends in the world is 8, and she lives in Waco, but she is the daughter of a Master Mason, and one of my district deputies. So everywhere that we go, she's at, and they have a great time. So absolutely, Masonic family is the way to go. Will he join a lodge someday? I hope so. And I think any father who has been in Masonry any time hopes that his son will follow in his footsteps.
Yeah.
For me, it's very important that he makes that decision on his own.
Yes.
And so never going to try to force it, never going to try to say, hey, it's something you should do someday. But I hope to be somebody that he looks up to, and I hope to live my life in those principles so that he knows it's an important part of my life. So when he comes to the age of majority, he makes that decision on his own. I really hope he does. Maybe he'll see this interview someday. Son, I hope he. But that's a decision. It's a personal decision for each of us. I wouldn't want it to be any different for him.
Well, it's like I always say, we always have new watchers and new listeners joining in. And the reason why that's important is because there's certain steps you have to take in your life before you can even knock on that door. You got to be a good man. You got to have a belief in supreme being and have a volume of sacred law and believe in the immortality of the soul. That's the foundation right there. And then everything else that you bring within Masonry just helps build you up and shape you as a better person. So if you don't have that foundation set, there's no way to do it. And nobody can just go up to their kids and say, hey, you're a good guy, join. They have to figure it out on their own. It's like it's a mix of the prodigal son from the Holy Bible. You don't know where they're going to land. But I tell all the guys, I'm like, listen, my number one goal is to make sure that there's at least a door for them to knock on when they get to that point in their life. Whether they knock on it or not, that door is there, So that's the important thing to me. I've been, it's funny that you mentioned Leonard Harvey, because I didn't realize he was a huge mentor of yours. And I was watching his interview with Jack Kelly, past Grandmaster Jack Kelly, and he said something really, really interesting to me. Is before he decided to make his announcement to run for the Grand South, which for those of you who aren't in Texas, that's where the Grand Lodge of Texas Grand Line starts. It's you run for the Grand Junior Warden. But before he made that decision, his wife asked him, do you have anything good to give the Grand Lodge of Texas? And he said, yeah. And that has really hit me, like even in getting in line or staying in line in my lodges. Do I have something good to give? Do I think I can contribute something to this lodge? Can I contribute something to this body? I got to know, what was your something that you thought that you could give that was just a little bit better?
So there's two things, right? So there's qualified for the office, and then there's what are you going to bring to the office? And so the first thing for me was qualified. And so for anybody out there that's thinking about this, these were my qualification boxes. Obviously you have to be a past master. I wanted to be a past president of our MWSA here in Dallas. I wanted to be on an appointed Grand Lodge officer, on the planning team, and to have been a district deputy grand master, obviously. I also wanted to be a master of a statewide lodge, which I built through Texas Lodge Research. After I had done all of those things, I felt that I was qualified, and then it comes down to exactly what you asked. What do you feel like you could bring? And this was actually really an internal struggle for me for many years leading up to it, thinking, do I run now, or do I wait for 20 years and run, when I'm technically supposed to? I'm using the air quotes.
Right.
And the thing that I kept wrestling with is, okay, maybe not as qualified now, but I have the energy and the enthusiasm. I'm looking at it through new eyes rather than waiting a little bit, maybe not as much energy, maybe a little more jaded, let's just be honest, and kind of looking back. And I decided to run while looking forward. And the reason was that energy and that excitement I thought would bring something new to the craft that we hadn't had for a while, and just to view it through new and younger eyes.
Yeah.
And really what put me over the top on that decision was the final thought of, I'll be a past Grand Master at the age of 39.
Yeah.
If the Lord is willing, I could be a past Grand Master for 50 years. And the amount of knowledge and the amount of cohesion that I could put into that and give back to the craft over the next 50 years really was something that to me put me over the edge and said, okay, no, you need to run now. You need to make this happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah, man, that is really cool. And I like that. I like the fact that you saw that there's a level of energy. One thing that I'm pushing to all the bodies and lodges that I belong to, it's we want to bring excitement. Guys like to see excitement. We want this excitement. And excitement is just energy. It's potential. It's basically light. It's what are you giving the lodge? How are you taking it and using it? And what are you doing outside in your community? And that's really cool. That is really cool.
People are drawn to it. people are drawn to it. So
Yeah.
it's something that we've tried to bring a lot of this year. I think we've had a lot of success.
You mentioned that past Grandmaster Leonard Harvey was a mentor of yours, and did he pass away before you got to run for the Grand South, or did he get to see that?
He did. He knew I was going to run, and we had talked about it, and basically I had the green light from him, and I think maybe 6 months into running when he had passed. And,
right.
And it really was unfortunate. I would have loved for him to be here and to take part in this year and be a part of it. But overall, he still is. He was and is a mentor, because the things he taught me, randomly I'll think of something he said or something he did. Yeah. And it inspires me to do what he would have done. And I got to give a tribute to him. I gave a toast, the 9 o'clock toast this year on his birthday, with his favorite drink, which is peach brandy and Coke. And, it's one of those things that's just very cool that he's still with me in a way. Yeah. But I certainly miss him every day.
And that light's going to carry on, because you are no doubt sharing that same light, that same love, that same information that he gave you with others around you. So his memory is going to live on for a long time through you, and hopefully through others as well. But that's just goes to show how small of a internal past Grandmaster fraternity that we have. And whenever you kicked it off and made the run and got elected, is there a particular past Grandmaster that's kind of like taking you in and helped kind of show you the ways? Or
the best and only way that I can answer that is Leonard Harvey. Even though he's still not with me, as we were saying just a few minutes ago, he's still with me. He has been the greatest influence on my Masonic life. And there's no way I would be where I am today without him. And he is the guy that constantly reminds me of what a Mason should be. But I will tell you this, within that smaller fraternity that you mentioned, there are brothers, right worshippers in this case, who have had greater impact on my life than others. And really and truthfully, a couple of them that have passed away, like Leonard. Bob Waters was a fantastic Mason, and he's a salesman like I'm a salesman. Right. But I didn't get to know him until the last couple of years of his life. And I really wish I would have known him longer. And David DeBrell, man, the prince of a guy, the guy who always, even though he was past Grandmaster, sought to really understand where you were coming from and what your thoughts were. Very approachable and just one of the nicest guys you would have ever met. Yeah. Those guys are guys that are with me daily. And then on top of that, you've got a few guys that are still here, that are still with us. And Tommy Frank Chapman. He was the guy that gave me my first office. He said, if I get elected, I want you to be Grand Junior Steward. And he, of course, he was successful, and I got to fall into that role. And I was on his planning team. That checked two of the boxes. So he's a big reason why I am where I am. Chance, his son, is my Grand Marshal. I'm very tight with that family, and very appreciative of them.
This year I met Right Worshipful Tommy Chapman for the first time. And, he's kind of a big name around some of the areas that I work with, especially in DMLA and whatnot. And I was really nervous meeting him. And he ended up being really super cool and hanging out with me and talking to me and just meeting on the level. And that was fantastic. And then, my experience with past Grandmaster Jerry Kirby, another fantastic guy. And just, it's really cool that you see people like you as the most worshipful at this time, and you're like, man, that's kind of the boss. I mean, that's just the way that humans act. You have a title, you have the gold and purple on, you're the boss. What you say kind of goes right now. But when we meet y'all are just so down to earth.
Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, if we're not doing that, what are we doing? That is what our fraternity is about, is meeting on the level and being able to meet a brother eye to eye, regardless of station. No eminence of station should let us forget that we're brethren.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the great things I love about how we are elevated, but we're only elevated for a time. And I know there's a certain, whatever you want to call it, preference given to past grandmaster status and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But still, in Texas, we go back to the right worshipful, where several states, they retain the most worshipful. And I think that is symbolic of being on the level, being elevated for a time, and returning right back to the level.
Yeah.
Which is such an important lesson within our craft. So, Jared Kirby, you mentioned him. He's another guy that really had an impact on my life, really more in Yorkright than craft masonry for the longest time. But when he got elected Grand Junior Warden, I remember he pulled out a brand new notebook and he started writing down District Deputy Grand Masters. And that was the first one that he wrote down. Now, we after that, we had to switch districts and stuff like that because he was trying to maneuver around, get all his buddies in there.
Right.
And I get it, but he was just another guy that had a real impact on my life.
Yeah.
And then Tommy Griffin.
Yep.
Tommy Griffin was really an impact in my life. And another one of those guys that was just very approachable, very down to earth.
Mm-hmm.
Here was a guy who served as Grand Master and then signed up for the Masonic Education and Service Committee. He was there teaching OLTs when I was going through, and he's a past Grand Master. I mean, that was just so inspiring to me.
Yeah,
such an approachable guy, such a nice guy, and on top of that, he when he was Grand Master, he conferred the Order of the Temple, and I thought that was one of the coolest things. And so this year, obviously, I'm Grand Master. I made it a point to confer the Order of the Temple. Because I just thought it was a really neat touch, the Grand Master conferring the Order of the Temple, and he did that. So all these guys have had, they've inspired me. They've, made me reach for higher heights. The past Grand Masters on the whole are a group that I really look up to.
Yeah, you are straight up going across everybody: Scottish Rite, York Rite, Shrine, Grotto, everybody that you belong to. You were still giving the same amount of time and effort to it, and that's really cool. Because wasn't that when you conferred that Order of the Temple, wasn't that the Good Friday Order of the Temple?
That was Good Friday, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've really looked for opportunities this year to not to just say the family of Freemasonry, but to show the family of Freemasonry. And so I've gotten to do stuff with D-Malay. I've gotten to do stuff with Rainbow Girls. The York Rite, the Scottish Rite, the Shrine, the Grotto. I've really had an opportunity to be active in all these groups. And even though I don't get to go to my monthly meetings as much as I would like to, I've been able to do it on a grander scale.
Yeah.
And so with the commandery, that was the Good Friday Order of the Temple. Interestingly enough, about 3 months later, we realized that there was going to be a Friday the 13th. And so we did a Friday the 13th Order of the Temple.
That's cool.
And we have one more Friday the 13th right before I go out of office, Order of the Temple that we're putting together as we speak. So just to find ways to highlight these different bodies of Freemasonry. Tonight, actually, we did the past master's degree on 18 candidates.
That's nuts.
It's such a cool tie. Masonry and that degree in particular, because it was once conferred in the Blue Lodges. Yeah. And so to be able to confer that, I didn't confer it, but I got to seat the candidates. Yeah. And I just thought that was one of the coolest things that I could do as Grand Master. So
I got to give a shout out to the York Rites on that one. If you're a Master Mason in Texas and you have not gone through the York Rite, you're still a little iffy whether or not you want to join, there is an honorary degree called the Past Master degree that you need to just contact your York Rite and see if the chapter will put it on you. It will change your life. It will prepare you for the East. It will get you ready for further Masonic roles in your career. And it's one of my favorites. Definitely one of my favorite degrees.
Absolutely. And I told the guys tonight, and I'll tell your audience as well, this degree had such a profound impact on me. I've had it conferred upon me 3 times in my life. The first time was when I went to New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
The second time was when I was installed. I was the Centennial Master of my lodge, and I got installed. And when I did that, I asked a group to come in and confer it on me again, even though I'd seen it. I thought the lessons were so important that I wanted to have it conferred upon me as I went in as master.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I was installed as Grandmaster, I had that same team, almost. There were a few guys that had to change out. But I had that same team come up and confer it on me again, because the lessons of it are so important that that I wanted to be reminded of it at every step in my progress through Masonry.
At Grand Lodge, after Grand Lodge, didn't y'all seat like 40 candidates?
We did. We had a huge class, and it was just absolutely phenomenal doing that in the Grand East, and having these guys that didn't know about the process, didn't know about the degree, just kind of falling into it and then being exposed to it and thinking, man, why didn't I do this however many years ago? It was really a neat experience to do that at Grand Lodge with the Grand High Priest. And the Grand High Priest was there tonight. So it was really interesting. Speaking
of the past master degree, it sets you up for so much. And like we said, it'll just help you in your Masonic career. But dude, I'm taking this from Jack Kelly. So don't get mad about this question, because it's a little bit of a rough question. We never want to throw any shadows on the light that we're trying to give on about Freemasonry on social media. 9 months in, have you had any big issues, anything that just was a little bit harder than you expected? Anything you can talk about in that and share a little bit of information, how you've had to handle a couple of disappointments or anything that's arose since you've been Grandmaster?
You know, there's you expect a lot of it, right? Because you know what you're signing up for, and especially being a trustee for 4 years, starting at Grand Junior Warden and then Grand Senior Warden and Deputy, you're exposed to a certain amount of it, and you know that certain things are going to happen during your year that you're going to have to deal with. But I will say that the 2 things that have really kind of hit me this year, one is a lot of people think that you as Grandmaster are, you know, the end-all be-all, and you can basically just wave a magic wand and make everything happen.
Yeah.
But there are still rules. There are still laws. There are still committees and proper ways and channels for things to go through. And so I think, you know, one of the things that I didn't expect is that people don't know that. They don't know that the Grandmaster can't just do whatever the heck he wants.
Right.
And so I've had people that I consider friends, or even people that I consider supporters of me throughout the years, kind of get upset with me or get bitter about something that I couldn't change, you know, something that I couldn't just wave a wand and make it the way they wanted.
Yeah.
And not that I would have if I could have, but it's interesting the fact that people think the Grandmaster is just this guy who can do whatever he wants. It's simply not the case.
Yeah.
You're given a lot of leeway as Grandmaster. You can do a lot of things, but you can't just do whatever you want. There are a lot of times there are laws or things put in place.
Right.
And so I think that's been kind of an interesting thing that you don't get until you're in this seat. But I would say overall, the number one thing that keeps popping up, sometimes in small instances, sometimes in big instances, is where we're at. You know, if you look at the average age of the Masons today, it's in the low to mid 70s.
Yeah.
But you look at the guys that are joining, it's all below 40. So there is a giant spread in between those 2 ages. There's different ideas, different ways we grew up, different views on things like technology, as you well know, with TikTok and podcasting.
It's a missing generation, really.
A couple of, I think, 2 missing generations, actually, if you want to get into it.
Yeah.
But really and truthfully, what that boils down to is you've got this group that has held this fraternity together long enough so that some group would eventually join, and here we are. You know, we're the younger generation. We're here and we're ready to go, but now they're hesitant, right? Because obviously, why wouldn't you be? It kind of reminds me of that scene in Indiana Jones. You know, the Grail. Right. And the guy's been waiting there for so long, and the guy walks in. He's going to defend the Grail, and he tries to pick up the sword, and he kind of falls backwards.
Yep.
He's like, you know, he had to watch it way too long, and these guys, thank God, thank God these guys that are older have been holding this fraternity together with baling wire and duct tape and however they could to hand it off. But it's been so long, and now you got this younger generation that shows up, and they're kind of antsy and excited. And not all of their ideas are the best ideas. So we've got to find a way to make these two work together. But almost every situation that I've run into that's been a surprise has kind of been an issue of making these two groups mold together. And it's a challenge that we're going to have to, as a fraternity, overcome. And I think that we'll get there. But it has created, in the interim, some confusion and some heartache and stuff like that. So that's where a lot of the issues that have come up this year came from.
Well, I have a solution for you right now. You just need to write a grand edict. You can do it tomorrow. We can get it out.
Yeah.
Implement seating charts. Implement seating charts at lodge dinners where you have to set guys from youngest to oldest to next youngest to next oldest and intermix them all, right? Just get the guys sitting together, eating together, praying together, breaking bread together, and then they'll eventually start talking and figuring out that they're not so different. We're all brothers. We all love the light. We just want to share it in a different way. So that's my advice to you.
I've been doing that. I've been doing that in different versions. We were just on this trip in the UK, and we had our own bus. And I was telling people, move around, go talk to people, sit in a different seat,
Yeah.
And we certainly did that during district deputy training. We didn't want these guys forming cliques. We wanted everybody to know everybody.
Right.
So we had different breakout sessions, and everybody had different ones, so that they had their best buddy, and then all of a sudden they're in two different groups, and so they had to make a new best buddy. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think it's important. I tell guys when they show up, like we had tonight, we had different groups from different lodges showing up for the chapter, or for the past master's degree, and they were sitting with each other. I said, You came with that person. Go sit next to somebody you don't know and have a conversation.
Yeah.
I do agree that we just need more of that all around.
So did your time in the East in the regular Blue Lodge, did your time there help prepare you for this on the grander level of things? Or is this stuff that you're just having to kind of learn on the go?
Absolutely. Every experience you have in life prepares you for the next thing. And, really, I was extremely fortunate. Although at the time it was stressful, to be the Centennial Master of my lodge, Trinity Valley in Dallas, Texas. When you're the Centennial Master, there's extra pressure, right? Because it's your 100th year.
Yeah.
There's coins that have to be made, pins that have to be made, events that have to be set up. And so a lot of the events and things that I'm doing now, the planning, I kind of cut my teeth on that as master, planning our Centennial event. And it really was a lot of fun. Looking back on it, originally it wasn't a lot of fun having to do all the work.
Right.
And then, being a master of a statewide lodge, I mentioned that earlier, but Texas Lodge of Research really was you only get 4 meetings, and it moves around the state.
Yeah.
So not only did that introduce me to new guys, but it also gave me that kind of idea of how to find a lodge or find a location and build an event around a meeting. And that's really, essentially what I've done this year. I've just gotten hopefully better at it. So.
Which I gotta throw out there for you. I found out that I am accepted into Texas Lodge of Research. Apparently they sent me a dues notice and it went through my spam folder and I didn't see it. So I paid that up, and now we're starting to think about possibly what we're going to write about. So thank you for that top sign there.
There you go. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure I signed your petition. So, they could have denied you, but I would have probably heard about it. So.
It would have probably been smarter if they did, but it is what it is. I know that you've met with multiple grandmasters across the state. In Minnesota, you were with 26, 27 of them in the same room, and y'all all did a special shout out to TikTok, which everybody loved. But we know that you guys, when y'all get together, of course, you're talking about the challenges on a national level and from different jurisdictional standpoints. But if there was one thing that you could just change about Freemasonry with the click of a finger or snap of a finger, what would that be?
In all reality, I don't know that I would change anything about Masonry. But I think Masonry is changing for the better right now. And really the The difference is just those two generational, the two generations that we have now with the 2-generation gap for all intents and purposes. I know that there were guys that joined out of those generations.
Yeah.
But trying to find a middle ground for them. And like you said, we're not that different, but we certainly approach it in a different way. And so I won't say I would change it about Masonry, but I look forward to the day when these two groups figure out totally how to work together.
Yeah.
Because when we do that, there's going to be nothing that can stop us. There's going to be nothing that will slow us down. And I really feel like we're kind of on the beginning of a revival of Masonry. Like I said, the guys that are joining are all under the age of 40, you know, statistically speaking.
Yeah.
And so we're really close to bridging that gap, and the young guys learning from the guys that have been here, holding this fraternity together. Once that happens, I just hope I'm alive to see it. So I wouldn't say that I would change it, but I know it's coming, and I very much look forward to the day when that starts to, when that spark is ignited. It's going to combust like nothing we've ever seen, and I think our fraternity is going to be the beneficiary of that.
I think the biggest part that's going to push that is the way we communicate, because we're still at that edge. Yeah, we're still at that edge where some of the older guys don't know how to use the new technology, but the younger guys won't use anything but new technology. So we're right there. It's just a fine line. And I agree with you. There's going to be something that bridges that gap. I just happen to think it's going to be communication. There's a huge shift in spirituality. There's a huge shift in the morals and the character of our nation. You can see it all over the news and all that. Do you think that Freemasonry will still remain relevant in 10 to 20 years?
I think Freemasonry is more relevant today than it has ever been. And it's for a multitude of reasons. But right now, the most important thing that we do, and the most important thing for us not to get away from, even if we're communicating through Facebook and TikTok and podcasting, is that we meet in person. Yeah. And I can't tell you the stories that I've heard of guys that could not even speak to another person. Now, after going to lodge, they're standing up and giving speeches or, running the lodge. It changes people's lives. Yeah. And in a world where you can work online, go to church online, you certainly buy all your stuff online. You can even buy groceries online and have them dropped off at your house. Of course. So, this social interaction has become what used to be commonplace. It has become one of our finest selling points as to why you should join the fraternity. Yeah. People are hungry for that. And until you have that social interaction in your life, you're not going to be happy. You can't replace that social interaction with anything else. It's kind of like religion. You can try to fill that void with everything else, but until you find it, you're just going to be, floating out there aimlessly. And Masonry does a fantastic job of bringing guys together, creating that community around you as the individual, and then also reminding you of what's most important in life. So it fills a lot of those gaps and a lot of those voids. And I'm telling you, there are a lot of people out there that have those voids in their life. And if you're one of them and you're listening to this podcast, you're looking for something, but you don't know what it is, I guarantee you Masonry has something for you. Because even if it's just building that community around you, even if it's just reminding you of all those important things on a monthly or weekly basis, depending on how often you go, it is very needed in today's world for those reasons. And I don't see it. I see it getting a lot worse, and therefore Masonry being a lot more needed before it gets better.
Yeah. Absolutely. Preach it. This question comes from a group of EAs, and this is, it's kind of funny. I asked about 5 or 6 EAs to send me a question, any question that they would want to ask the Grand Master, and they're from different jurisdictions, but what would you ask your Grand Master? And they all said this. They said, what is something that every Freemason today, entered apprentices up, can do to help Freemasonry shine brighter today?
Interesting question. And I think it goes back to something that we've already talked about. That is, do what makes you happy. Don't go down a path that you hate, that you dread because you feel like it's what you're supposed to do. And then, end up resenting that process and associating that with what Freemasonry is. Freemasonry is such a large umbrella. There are so many different things you can do. You can travel. You can, be a podcast guy if you want to be a podcast guy like yourself. You can be in the administrative side of it. You could do the philanthropy side of it and give back to your community. You could study the philosophy and enrich your mind. You could look at the history. I mean, you're a history nerd. There's so many different avenues of masonry that you can go down, but find what you really, really enjoy. And even if you're going through the lineup in your lodge to become a past master or, working on some other aspect, make sure that that's where you spend the majority of your time as a Freemason. When I talk about, make masonry your masonry, that's what I'm talking about. Figure out what you want to do. And if it's something that's going to take multiple steps to get there, lay out a trestle board, figure out how to get from point A to point B. That's something that we're taught as Masons, but we don't always do, is figure out your game plan to get to where you want to be. But make sure that it's something that you enjoy and not something that you're doing because you think you have to do it. Nothing in masonry is mandatory. After you become a master mason, you're really on your own. And at that point, it's your time to define what you want masonry to be for you, because it is a personal journey and it is your journey. Don't let someone else tell you what it ought to be.
Amen. What does the life of past Grandmaster Right Worshipful Brad Billings look like?
Like we were just talking about, there's a trestle board, and I've got different things laid out. I've got stuff that I'm working on now that will continue. My very good friend Chance Chapman is going to be Grand Commander about 3 months after I go out, and he's helped me so much this year. I'm obligated to help him next year, so I'll be doing some new stuff on the commander's front. Nothing really big or official, just helping out a lot. I've been asked to speak in North Carolina. I've been asked to speak in Iowa and a few other places, a few other states. So I imagine a lot of that type stuff, but there are still things on the trestle board that, as you can imagine, over the last 3 or 4 years, I've had to kind of step away from. Doesn't mean that they go away or change. Just means I stepped away from it for a little while and went on a new trajectory. But now I'm going to get back to those things. So I look forward to being active again in my chapter council, commandery, Scottish Rite, some of the things that I've had to step away from that I dearly love. And then on top of that, some new opportunities. But if people think that I'm slowing down or going away, I can't do it. Masonry's in my heart and in my soul, and I'll still be here active. And so you will still see me anywhere and everywhere that I can possibly turn up.
It's kind of even a little bit of a mentorship for any past masters going through Blue Lodge. A lot of times you see the past masters kind of go through the line, get in the East, and then they fade away. They're no longer in their lodge's light anymore. They of course they let the new guys come up and do their thing, but then they just don't come back. And I think it's really cool and special that you're still planning to be active, to put on these roles and help the overall body of masonry out. And it goes to show a lot of your character and show a lot of your passion towards a fraternity. So I thank you for that.
Fraternity is vast, and so there's no way that you can ever do everything at one time. So you've got to span it out, and even if I stay as active as I am now for the next 50 years, as I said, I hope in the opening of this interview, I still don't know that I'm going to get to all of it. There's so many different avenues and aspects that you could do. But you did touch on one thing, and that's mentorship. And that's, like I had talked about earlier, kind of being the guy that hopefully is a past Grandmaster for a very long time. But one of the things that I really look forward to doing now is that Leonard Harvey, my mentor, past Grandmaster, he opened so many doors for me. Grandmaster Chapman, Grandmaster Kirby, those guys, they opened so many different doors for me that now I kind of see it as my job to get back to the next generation of guys that are coming up, that are excited, that have that same level of excitement and enthusiasm, to open the doors for them and to watch how they come through them and what they do with the opportunities that they're given. So very excited about that chapter of my life coming up.
Before I finish ask my last question here, because I do have one more question for you. I want to thank you so much for what you've done for the social media Masonic community. We're not graced with just being in Texas. We're worldwide. We're international, and it's been an honor to bring you on, introduce you to other Masons across the world, essentially, and kind of bring you in and make you a part of the family. And I just have to say how humble I am and grateful that you have accepted this little side mission here in your journey as Grandmaster to hang out with Fluff every now and then. So thank you so much.
It's been great.
I really appreciate it.
It's been so great because before you came along, we had talked about, different avenues. Like I said, we have a social media calendar, mainly run through Facebook. We do some Instagram. We've been trying to catch up with the times because we were 20 or 30 years behind the curve. and then the subject, of Twitter came up, and we're like, I don't know about it.
Yeah.
Then TikTok came up, and it was the hard no. And but there are guys like yourself out there that are representing us well, and so we chose to have our exposure through TikTok through guys like yourself and others that were already out there doing it without necessarily doing a Grand Lodge page. So thank you for what you do and for sharing this content with the brethren and just getting it out there for more people to see. Yeah.
Well, in the memory of past Grandmaster Jack Kelly, I got to leave you with one last question. Do you have anything to say or anything to add to this discussion for the good of Masonry?
Just that, make Masonry your own, and really look to bridge that gap. Help us to bridge that gap between the older generation and the younger generation. I'm trying to keep peace and harmony as much as I can at the helm. But, individual Masons, we have to take upon that responsibility for ourselves. I remind everybody it's a personal journey, and yours doesn't have to look like anybody else's to be successful. You can blaze your own path. You can, make a different combination than you've ever seen before. But make it your own, and really and truthfully look for mentorship. That was something I wanted to talk about, but because I feel it's important. But just like I feel you charting your own course, you setting out your own trestle board, everything in this is you. It's your journey. And mentorship, I feel like, is very much in that same vein. Now, your lodge, when you're coming through, might pair you with this guy because it was his turn to take on the mentee, and you happen to be the guy. Doesn't mean you're going to have the same values or thoughts or connections. It'll help get you to Master Mason. But once you're a Master Mason, it's on you to find that guy that you want to be your mentor. And you do that through traveling. You do that through finding what you enjoy and then finding someone that's really good at that. And then ask that guy to, you don't have to make it awkward and walk up to him, hey, will you be my mentor? Just start hanging around. And I promise you, before you know it, that relationship will evolve. So I guess if I could end on anything, really take responsibility for your journey through this, because no one else knows you like you, and you're the only one that's going to be able to weave all the different aspects of this fraternity into the tapestry that you want. But you have the complete autonomy and ability to do that for yourself.
Absolutely.
Take advantage of it.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Most Worshipful Brad Billings. Most Worshipful, thank you again for coming on the show tonight. I appreciate you taking up your time and wasting all your phone battery with us. And I wish you the best of the rest of your year. Safe travels. Get out there, keep up the hard work, enjoy the time with your DDGMs. I know you're pretty much just made an entire family with them at this point. And as always, if there's anything Brother Fluff or Zach Wyatt can do for you, let me know. I am here for you, and appreciate everything you've done for the fraternity this year.
Thank you, Brother Fluff, and I look forward to seeing you down the road.
Awesome. To all my watchers and followers and friends and family who may be watching this right now, y'all go out, do something good for somebody this week. Samote B.